On this episode of the Neutral Wisdom podcast, Satanic Warlock Robert Shirley covers pseudonyms and Satanic Identity and is joined by Warlock Arashi Enyo and Witch Delilah Charmer to discuss their chosen pseudonyms and how they use them to enhance their satanic selves. You are listening to the Neutral Wisdom podcast, a podcast dedicated to passing on knowledge and experience from a satanic perspective, hosted by Satanic Warlock Robert Shirley.
Greetings and welcome to the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. I'm your host, Satanic Warlock Robert Shirley, and on today's episode, we'll be talking about pseudonyms and Satanic Identity. I'm happy to be joined all the way from France by Warlock Arashi Enyo, and a little bit closer to home by Witch Delilah Charmer, who both use pseudonyms to enhance their own satanic selves. Should be a great conversation. The essay in today's podcast was written very early on in my writings and will be available in my upcoming book, Neutral Wisdom, Contemplations of a Satanic Warlock. At the time I wrote it, I was very much focused on the Satanic Warlock and the teaching of Church of Satan Magister Dr. Robert Johnson. While I still embrace all of the lessons and experience I gained from the Warlock Academy, I've since expanded my work to include satanic principles in a broader sense, in both my writings and my podcast. So, consider this essay a period piece. While written from the Satanic Warlock's perspective, it is still a great topic for everyone. So why would anyone pick a name other than their own for use online and elsewhere? Well, given the dreaded S word, most often it makes sense to do so, whether professionally or personally. Perhaps we don't want our real names to be known because nobody knows we're Satanists. Maybe it would be a bad move professionally. One of my Hellfire brothers works for a hardcore Bible thumper who would not look too favorably on one of his managers being a Satanist. Maybe, similar to myself, it's an opportunity to be another person, to embrace one's is to be. This is not to say that my in-real-life persona is any different than my online persona. However, for me, it was far easier to dump the old profile and have fun doing the things I really wanted to do, all without having to explain it over and over and over again. Sort of why I started this podcast, I guess. If we can normalize ourselves a bit more in the eye of the public, we would not have to be one of society's pariahs. Maybe, like today's guests, one chooses a new name to complement one's satanic identity. Magister Johnson's The Satanic Warlock recommends this as a way to become fully immersed in your chosen archetype. Regardless of any reason, there are a lot of us who prefer our pseudonyms to our real names. I find that my own chosen name embodies the person I truly am. And once you see where it comes from, it's also a pretty satisfying dig at its source. In any case, today's essay, again written more for the perspective of a satanic warlock, states my own views on this. It's titled, What's in a Name? Choosing a name to complement your warlock self. I hate my name. Well, my real birth name, Robert Shirley, is my nom de plume. I was cursed with the Catholic tag, which consists of a given name, the names of 2 or 3 relatives, and the random name of some Christian saint, which, needless to say, makes my birth certificate and passport a nightmare when I travel. I find that my birth name is soft and not very assertive. When you hear it, it does not immediately make you think, well, I'm going to listen to what this guy has to say. I would rather have a manly name like Dick Steele, Lance Goodthrust, or Studley Hungwell. Of course, I'm kidding about wanting a name like that. Or am I? The point is, your name is part of your identity. It is deeply personal. Likewise, hearing a strong name immediately gives an impression about the person attached to it. When establishing our warlock self or warlock identity, part of the process can be to choose our own warlock name. This is outlined in Magister Dr. Robert Johnson's The Satanic Warlock in detail. Chapter 2, Warlock Archetypes, pages 40 to 42 if you're so inclined to go check it out. When I first read through that chapter in the book, I sort of glossed over that part. Magister Dr. Johnson does provide a list of infernal names to choose from, but the concept just didn't resonate with me. As bad as my name is, I don't think I could take myself seriously if I started going by Yuck Picolis or some other combination of names from the list. It's not that I would not have the confidence to pull it off, but rather, as I have written about in other articles, it's actually believing it. However, there are many members of the Church of Satan who have used infernal names very effectively. It has become part of their COS identity and serves as a way of separating their COS selves from the real world. When you hear their names, you can immediately associate them with the COS, as well as get an idea as to their personality based on the name they choose. As I started my own personal journey of writing, I decided to affect a pseudonym, due in large part to hating my own birth name. It gives me confidence, and I can write about personal things with a little more impunity. If I keep it ambiguous enough, it can't be tied back to the real me. The important thing to remember is that our birth name is given to us, but our identity is self chosen. An identity represents how we perceive ourselves and how we want other people to perceive us. Hearing our own name has a profound psychological effect. What better way to reinforce the Warlock identity in self than by hearing the Warlock name? This will serve as a constant reminder of the identity you have chosen for yourself. It may even act as a trigger for you to be conscious of your actions as a Warlock in real time. It is a way to fully immerse yourself in your chosen archetype. Should you choose a Warlock name for yourself? That's entirely up to you. If you do elect to choose a name, pick something strong, something that resonates with you and broadcasts your Warlock self. For example, it might be difficult to be perceived as a devilish gentleman with a name like Eugene Lipschitz. It could be done, but it definitely would be a challenge. Talk about lesser magic. So how do you actually choose a Warlock name? You could use the provided resource in the Satanic Warlock. These are all great diabolical names if you have the confidence to carry them. Or you can take the opportunity to give yourself the name you've always wanted. For the record, Studley Hungwell is already spoken for. Connect your Warlock name to an aspect of yourself that you truly love. You do love yourself, right? Sure, it reflects who you are and who your Warlock self truly is. The Warlock name can be a very powerful tool in developing and broadcasting the Warlock self. Do a self-assessment and see if perhaps giving a name to yourself will help you along. As a postscript, how did I choose my name, my pseudonym, Robert Shirley? I simply picked the most evil people I have ever known. Thanks a lot, Mom and Dad. Let's take a short break here. When we come back, we welcome Warlock Arashi Enyo and Witch Delilah Charmer to discuss their chosen pseudonyms and how they use them to enhance their satanic selves.
You are listening to the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. For questions, comments, or suggestions, email us at information.neutralwisdom.ca.
Rabbit Crow Arts and Graphics brings you art, items, and apparel with a nasty bite. Specializing in presenting imagery of a dark and historical flavor, Rabbit Crow modifies this dark aesthetic imagery for modern eyes in a wide range of formats, from stretched canvas paintings to t-shirts and coffee mugs. Art expressly for the elite segment of humanity with whom dark art resonates. Visit us today at rabbitcrow.com.
Welcome back to the Neutral Wisdom Podcast, and I'd like to welcome our special guests for today. I'll break these up into separate interviews for time. So my first guest is a warlock in the Church of Satan, works in public transportation, is an amateur cook, loves all musical genres, and has a particular fondness for wiener dogs. And the fact that he was one of my first readers and listeners doesn't hurt. From France, welcome Arashi Enyo to the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. I am so happy to have you here with me today.
Thank you for having me, Robert.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this discussion, especially since I put out the request on social media to talk about pseudonyms and names. And you're one of the first people that got back to me. So should be a lot of fun, I hope.
I just had to, just to give my input,
Yes, absolutely. And we welcome input from everybody. So this is going to be fun. So other than what I said about you in my introduction, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background? How did you become a Satanist? And how about a little bit about where you live? That would be fascinating for us over here on our side of the water.
Well, I live in a former coal mining era, northeast France. It's called Lorraine. That should be of interest for our American listeners. We have the largest military cemetery nearby, American cemetery in Saint-Avold, and we have a lot of industry now. But coal mining ended by the end of the 90s, beginning of the 2000s. My background is, I'm a linguist. I was a linguist, I was a translator, I was a commercial assistant, I was an assistant to general manager. Also, did I say freelance translator? Now I'm just simple bus driver.
Nothing simple about public transportation at all, my friend. I know you speak a lot of languages. How many languages do you speak, and what languages are those?
My native language is German. Then I learned French, and then finally English and Italian. But with Italian, it only works under torture.
Okay. Yeah, and a lot of hand movements, I guess.
Parliamo con le mani. We speak with hands.
If I was to use my Italian, we'd probably be kicked off the air, so I will not do that. So what I found interesting is I met you under your original name. I believe it was earlier this year.
Yes.
And you're one of the first people I interacted with on my now defunct original Facebook page, which apparently is now selling some kind of a diet plan. I may want to go back and
Oh,
look at it. But what was great was that you found my content all the way over where you are. So, what was it with the content that resonated with you out of curiosity? What made you want to listen more and even come on and speak to me today?
we have a lot of things in common. I believe we were both raised in the same religion and with the same kind of parents. So that already creates a bond, you know. You have this insight about everything. And I was a bit shocked by the last two closing sentences. Thank you, mom and dad.
It is where I pulled my name from, and to me, it is probably
Yeah.
one of the most diabolical names I could ever come up with. That's for sure.
Well, and my alias, if you like, is because I wanted to put as much distance as possible between me and my Roman Catholic roots. So I choose a Japanese alias. It means tempest at high sea. Arashi means tempest, and Enyo means deep sea or high sea.
I always got kind of a samurai impression off of it as well. Are you involved with Japanese culture or the samurai culture whatsoever?
I'm involved with Japanese culture because I read much of Japanese novels, short stories, and so
Mhm.
on. I also own a bit of cold steel, namely katanas. But it's not my only influence. My other influence is Lovecraft. And how I became a member of the Church of Satan is quite simple if you look at it from a psychological perspective. Namely, I was always attracted to darkness,
Okay.
dark themes, Lovecraft, vampires, werewolves, and so on. I wasn't afraid at all of cemeteries or anything like that. And at some point, you evolve. And I officially left the Catholic Church back in 1995. Officially, I wrote to the bishop of the local bishop of Metz and told him, let's wipe me out of your baptism registers. And he wrote back, okay, there you go. End of story.
Yeah, so you went all in right off the hop, right? You weren't just a fallen Catholic. You actually took the steps to completely divorce yourself from the Catholic religion altogether.
Exactly. And then I looked was also very busy working, but I looked for, from time to time, into Buddhism, whatever, vampirism, and all kind of exotic stuff. I was a bit with Rosicrucians for a time, and and progressively I discovered on Facebook the public Facebook group from the Church of Satan, and then I followed them, and things came in between, and then I had to delete my Facebook account and reconnect it only 2 years later. And from then on, I digged a bit more into Satanism. I read the books. At some point, I said, well, it's not enough to just read quotes or read what the people say about Satanism. You have to read the Satanic Bible, maybe also Satanic rituals or Satan Speaks, etc. At some point, it was only logical to say, okay, what now? Do I become a member or not? Well, I had the money, I had the will, and so I became a member. And that was 2019. I received my red card on February 2020 and my elevation to Warlock by the beginning of February this year.
Are you an out Satanist, or do you kind of keep that to yourself?
My policy is to neither show nor hide. So if people ask me if they see my medallions or so, they just ask me, well, what did you post on Facebook? What was that? And I say, okay, I posted something from Anton Zendel LaVey, and did you like it? And they don't ask who LaVey was, their curiosity goes only so far. At some point, I think I will out myself as a Satanist. But generally, I neither show nor hide. If people are curious to ask, well, I'll gladly respond. And what I wanted to do was to start a blog. I put it a bit on the back burner, but now I have enough material to write some blog posts.
Fantastic. Are you planning on using social media to publish your blog, or are you going to start a website? How are you going to go and move forward with that?
I plan to do this on one social media, certainly. That would be Blue Sky or Facebook. Rather, Blue Sky, just short posts, explaining just some focal points on Satanism.
And so you have affected a pseudonym. And I know that when you responded to me, you said that it really enhanced or reinforced yourself as a Satanist. So do you find that using Arashi Enyo is part of your lesser magic? Does it give you confidence in knowing who and what you are and that you are exactly where you're supposed to be? So as I wrote in my essay at the top of the program, that's what I find it does for me. It's when I hear that name, and for me, because it's so diabolical and evilly based, it really kind of reminds me of the position that I'm in, the position that I want to be in, and what my is to be is. Do you find that it works that way for you as well?
It certainly works that way for me because, as I said, it's linked to water, the element water. I happen to be a Pisces, even if I don't believe in astrology that much or at all. But I found that connecting myself to water is very important on the symbolical level. That's why I also have a katana sword with Ryujin, that's the sea dragon who controls the weather and so on. And I've always also have a statue of, how you say, Stulu. And every time I need some more energy or some bit of boldness, I picture either a raging sea or a dragon or something like that, from the deepest depths of the sea. That's a very powerful picture to me.
So your crown prince would be Leviathan then?
Exactly.
Makes perfect sense. So I love that because you've chosen a pseudonym for yourself that ties you to the thing that gives you energy, the thing that gives you inspiration, and the thing that makes you want to move forward. So it makes perfect sense that you would pick a name that is based with the water element.
And you can't stop water.
That's true. So do you ever disclose your secret identity to anybody? And if you do, under what circumstances would that be? So, for example, if I have a decent online relationship with somebody, I might correspond with them outside of the neutral wisdom thing. And in that case, I wouldn't say my name was Robert Shirley. I would say my name was my real name. Do you
Yes.
do you do that as well? Do the people know you by your real name? Or is it when you're dealing with people within our organization, are you only Arashi Enyo?
Obviously, Satan me knows my real name. And so does Witchcraft District Bazaar. That is Renee and Storm and Marcus the Frost, and also some people in upstate New York. They know me by my real name, of course, because that's required. On social media, I prefer the alias because I have friends in Germany who are also Satanists. And I speak with them on a regular basis. In the beginning, they used my alias and said, no, my real name is this and that. Yes, okay. And they say, also send me a book, and I send them Gilmo medallion, from Satan Me. And at some point, you have to disclose your name, and I feel confident to disclose my name to such people who interact on a regular basis, who are clear about who they are, who don't want to brag about, oh, I'm in touch with a Satanist. I want to connect with like-minded people, because people who are of other persuasions, of other philosophies, of other religions, well, I know Christianity, I know Judaism, I know Islam. I'm not interested to connect with most of my colleagues outside of work, but with people who show interest, also think a little bit more, not just, oh, I admire what you do, which doesn't happen, which hasn't happened yet. But no, I just want to, alchemy has to work together. People have to work together to interact, yet to exchange ideas, to be somewhat dynamic, not just, oh, yes, that's great. I want movement. I want the flow, not just hello, yes, thank you. No, doesn't work for me.
Makes sense. So you interact with other members in our organization for the most part as your pseudonym because that's who you present yourself to be to our organization. And it's that common bond with other members that you share.
Yes.
That makes perfect sense. And I haven't seen you on social media as your in real life person for a while. So did you change your profile name or did you do like I did and just dump your first profile and start a new one?
I have still my profile from 2016, I think. Same profile. I changed names many times because I didn't want the algorithms and the bots to catch this and to put it there in the open, like being searchable on Google for many reasons because some privacy. Although Facebook is exactly the opposite. They want you to expose it all. And when I switched to Arashi Enyo, I put my real name in brackets as a second name. So it's a bit ambiguous because, okay, you know who I am, but you don't know who I am because the real me is not, I'm not a Christian, I'm not a Buddhist or anything, I'm a Satanist, okay? And that's what you've got to discover if you care enough to go the way. I mean, I left the door ajar. If you don't want to enter, come in. If you don't want, stay outside.
So that brings up an interesting question. So who is the real you? Is the real you Arashi Enyo, or is the real you your other name?
That's a good question. Obviously, it's both. Because my real name allows me to function in society. It allows me to have a job and so on. I wouldn't have a job under my alias, for example. But the real thing, interesting thing is it's a bit like Zen Buddhism or Zen in general. Personality is something that's not necessarily fixed or stable. And you bring out the element that you need at any given time to interact with people or showing them what I want to show them.
So your pseudonym is magic and it affects your lesser magic 100% of the time.
100% of the time.
Just before we wrap up, is there anything else you would like to say about today's discussion? If you want to pass any messages along to anybody in the audience, do you have any projects that you're doing? I'd love to hear more about this blog that you want to start. Feel free to plug anything that you have because this is your opportunity.
Well, obviously, I would like to apologize for my bad accent.
No apology necessary.
And I want to say hello and hail Satan to all the Satanists I know online. And I hope we'll interact more and maybe I'll pay a visit to Howl in Fort Myers for my baptism. I don't know. It would be a great thing. And I would also like to pay a visit to my friends in upstate New York, of course, and those in between. And my project, yes, the blog, obviously. I will try to make this also on Facebook.
I look forward to seeing what you write, and I'm sure that the rest of us are looking forward to it as well. So keep me in the loop as to when you start publishing, and we'll make sure that people know about it.
Yes, I will post this as soon as I have written down some material. So I will post this in the members-only Facebook group, for sure.
We will be watching for it. Again, I say thank you very, very much for being here with us today and for sharing your viewpoint. And let's do this again sometime. Arashi, I would love to have you back on the show and keep an eye on the socials. And if another topic comes up you'd like to have some input on, definitely get a hold of me. Let me know.
Okay, will be done.
Very good. We will talk to you next time. Thanks again for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
My second guest today is a Church of Satan witch, born and raised in Texas, loves solitude, nature, music, and always has a zest for life. Delilah Charmer, welcome to the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. It's a real pleasure to have you here today.
Howdy. Hello.
So, other than what I said about you in my introduction, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background? How did you become a Satanist? Things along those lines.
Okay, so basically, oh wow, where do I start? A little bit about me. I was born and raised in Fort Worth, Texas. The Fort Worth is known as Hell's Half Acre. And what Hell's Half Acre was where outlaws came into town. You had a Sundance Kid, Wyatt Earp, Butch Cassidy. They would all linger around, and they would gamble. They would visit the saloons and dancing halls, gambling, the brothels. We had brothels here at one time. They basically boosted the economy, believe it or not.
Oh, I believe it,
So,
especially with the brothels. I can totally understand that. So, a lot of
yeah,
history. Where are you from?
History. That's where I'm from. Fort Worth is called the Den of Sin as well, which I think is very fitting that I live here, reside here, and it's totally true. As far as me and my background, I have a background in advertising, marketing, modeling, hospitality, and of course, magic. I didn't realize I had been implementing Satanism into my life all throughout my school years, especially high school, until I discovered the Satanic Bible and the Satanic Witch. My parents had put me in a private school when I was little. They didn't really talk about church too much with me, but they did throw me in private school, I realized Christianity was a crock of bullshit when my parents started me in that system. I remember one time my kindergarten teacher told us to pray and ask Jesus Christ into our hearts. So here I am, a little girl, picturing this little man actually coming into it didn't make sense to me. That's so illogical. I started delving into the occult little by little at a time, testing out different avenues and whatnot. Finally decided to look into Satanism my own self, and went into a bookstore when I was about 16, read the Satanic Bible. I realized that was all me. That was who I was. It was pretty, well written, and everything was right there. There was nothing that wasn't there that wasn't me.
Perfect. So you found yourself in the pages of the book like most of us do. And it
Yes.
sounds like you found it right away. A couple of the guests I've had and a lot of the people that I talk to, we read it and then we put it away and then we come back to it later on. Doesn't sound like that happened for you.
No, it seemed like it was pretty much in my head as a little girl. I mean, I had all these fascinations with different things that my sisters or my friends at the time didn't have. I was real into Egyptian history. I was fascinated with space, Saturn, science, all the things that normally little girls aren't, into. And of course, I like my Barbie dolls too, So that's pretty much how I got into it. I slowly made my way, and I tested theories and whatnot, and wanted to verify if those were true. So that's how I came and started really going into it. And it just started pretty much rolling after that.
We've spoken offline as well. And you mentioned that you're a writer. And so what kind of
Yes.
books have you written? Anything we might have heard of? What genre or subject matter is your specialty?
Okay, so basically I've done a lot of poetry growing up. So that's where I started. I started with abstract poetry. I had poems published in the local newspaper. I also have a horror anthology that I basically got together with several other COS members and called Messages from the Dark Side. And
Is that available anywhere?
it's actually available on Amazon still.
Fantastic.
And a lot of us got together, and I pretty much put it together. And I think this was when COVID was going on. So that was my project, my COVID project.
Nice to be creative and keep busy while all that was going on, while we were 2 weeks to lower the curve, right?
Exactly. So I was kind of looking for opportunity as well during that time. My other book that I'm in is The Verse of Infernal.
Oh, I've seen this one. Underworld
Yes.
Amusements, I believe you can get that there.
So yeah, I was in this one, and I have, I believe, about 3 poems in there. One called Wrapped in Darkness. The other one is I Am My Own Redeemer. And another one called The Dream.
Love it. And that's one of the best ways to express yourself. As you know, you do it through poetry, I do it through my
Yes.
writing, and now this. And it's just really starting to get what's in your head out onto the paper, right?
Right, exactly. So that's how I work. I like a dark horror, poetry, abstract. I use a lot of symbolism where no one really knows unless you know, or, that kind of thing. Or you put your own spin on it, kind of thing, too.
Open to interpretation, right? You get the idea out,
Exactly.
let people run with the ball. That's awesome.
Exactly.
So you had contacted me in response to my kind of call out on social media about pseudonyms, about this topic. So what was it about the topic that resonated with you out of curiosity, made you want to contact me and contribute today?
You were talking about online monikers and stuff like that. And I've always actually used, even before online, I found myself as a young girl using, I guess you could say, aliases or other names to protect my real identity, because I had someone once tell me, don't give your info out to strangers. Don't
Exactly.
give it out. So I made this name up just for the fun of it, growing up when I was about 12 years old. And it kind of stuck with me for a little while. Just a regular name, and then once I got to know the person, then I told them, okay, well, here's my real name. Nice to meet you. But it's just a
Yeah.
way to protect yourself, But as far as online with the Lola Montez, I used that one for a while now. And Lola Montez was a Anglo-Irish dancer. There's a few people out there that thought my name was actually Lola Montez. It's not. She became well known for a dance called the Spider Dance. Eventually, she became a mistress to King Ludwig I of Bavaria. One of the things I liked about her and found intriguing was that she was able to manipulate and get info out of the great men of the time, the politicians and stuff like that, was able to weave her way up to, at that time was a liberal thinking and instill that into the politics. So she had a lot of force, I guess you could say, behind all that. So I always found that interesting. And I thought that was, how she worked her magic was pretty interesting too.
Yeah, there's a lot of lesser magic and glamour in that story. And it sounds
Yes,
like that person was very in tune with the satanic witch long before it was even a thing. So
exactly.
y'all have been doing this for a long time. It was just somebody needed to come and write it down for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
So
your names, how do they enhance or reinforce your own self as a Satanist? So do you use it as part of your lesser magic? Does it give you confidence in knowing who and what you are and that you're exactly where you're supposed to be in life? As I said in my essay at the top of the program, that's what it does for me. I was just wondering if it does the same for you.
yes, it does. I guess that's all into magic, is that it's interweaved. The things that the name, for instance, even Delilah Charmer, just the name Delilah. You automatically think of the Samson and Delilah Bible story,
Yes.
and so she used her ways. She cut Samson's hair and all that good stuff. So she got her what she wanted. She was in league with a couple of other higher ups during that time, and she actually helped them, find out his secret, which was his hair.
So your pseudonyms really, you identify with those strong magical women of history.
Yes, yes. I
Okay.
and it's something that's always just came naturally. I guess I could thank my mom for that. Really, my mom actually put me into a pageant when I was 1 year old. So I had no say in it, and she got me dressed up a little red and white dress, and I won first place out of all the babies. So I thought that was interesting. I was like, "Thanks, Mom." So she kind of set the tone in that aspect.
Set you on the path right there. You
Right.
had kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but I wanted to know if you ever disclose your secret identity to anybody. If so, under what circumstances would that be? For example, if I have a decent online relationship with a person, I might correspond with them outside of the neutral wisdom thing. And in that case, I
Right.
wouldn't use Robert Shirley. So do you ever tell people who you really are?
I do. It's really about my vibe with you, and also my if you've been around a while in the organization, and that kind of thing. Yeah, I do. It just depends on how long I've known somebody, or if I feel I can really trust you and such stuff like that. So
Here's a question that I didn't send you ahead of time, but it came up yesterday with Arashi Enyo.
okay.
So is Delilah Charmer or Lola Montez, is that the real you, or is the real you your real life persona?
Ah, well, I guess it depends on who you ask.
Okay. You got to say more now.
It's all really just depends on what's going on. So I have found I'm kind of a chameleon when out in the world. I can blend in with the best of them, or just if I really want to stand out, I know how to do that as well. It really just depends.
So you're going to leave it a mystery. It all depends on who interacts with you and how we do it. Okay.
Exactly. Thank you.
All right. Make mental notes, and everybody else out there can make mental notes too if they have to interact with you. You got to watch who we're getting, I guess, on the other end. It has been an absolute hoot to have you here with us today, and I very, very much appreciate it. And is there anything you'd like to say further to this topic? Do you have any projects that you want to plug? Feel free. This is your forum, so we'd love to hear what you have to say.
So to kind of go on with that too, like many COS members know my real name, and I've shared many of my personal life situations too, stories as well. I have quite a few. I find a secret is magic in all of itself as well. There's times to, tuck the Baphomet in. There's times to let it just come all undone, kind of thing. It's all a mystery, like you say. It leaves people guessing, and then there's the wow factor too, kind of the old confound and confuse.
Yes.
So,
I could not have said that better myself, and I'm actually feeling pretty confused right now, so not a problem whatsoever. Any books in the future? Any poetry anthologies, poems? Are you being published anywhere?
Well, I have been just self-publishing my own stuff. There is works of another anthology in a sense. Oh, I don't know what you call it. It's like a duet with another COS member, and we are going to be basically back and forth. It's kind of going to be an interesting story. That's all I will say at this point. But
and when can we expect that?
That's a good question. Still in the very beginning stages of being written and all that good stuff. But I also have dolls I've been working on. I've been working on some voodoo dolls, that kind of thing too, whether for decoration, or if you really want to use, put something into play, that too.
I'll get my face real close to the camera here. So if I end up seeing anything that looks like me, I'll know this interview didn't go all that well for you.
Oh my goodness.
Again, I love it. Thank you so much for doing this today, and
For sure.
love to have you back sometime. If especially when this new project of yours comes out, absolutely let me know. Let's get you back on here and let's talk about it some more.
That sounds great. I'd love to be on this show again.
All right, we'd love to have you. So until next time, we'll talk to you soon. And that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. I'd like to thank all of you for listening, and a huge thank you to Warlock Arashi and Witch Delilah for being here today. Please check out their socials and message them directly if you'd like any further information or just to yank their chain. Please drop a like or comment down below. For questions or comments, you can email me directly at information@neutralwisdom.ca. You can listen to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. And a like or follow on social media goes a long way towards helping this podcast grow. Check me out on Facebook under Robert Shirley, and check out Instagram at neutral_wisdom. Also, be sure to visit the website at neutralwisdom.ca. Until next time, ever forward.
You have been listening to the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. For more information, email us at information.neutralwisdom.ca, Facebook under Robert Shirley, or Instagram at neutral_wisdom. Also, check out our website at neutralwisdom.ca. Program copyrighted 2025. Devilish Gentleman Enterprises.